we're sending famine, we're sending conquering, we're sending death. They've gone forth, they've brought that famine and that death, and God said, now my spirit is quieted. I was angry, I was upset, I was incensed that they were offering children and sacrifices, that they were fornicating, that they're worshiping other gods, that they're abusing their bodies. I was angry. And now that this judgment has fallen upon them, God said, my spirit's quieted. The book of Revelation made easy. Now, what most people, there's movies talk about the Four Horse Riders Apocalypse. I mean, even Clint Eastwood made one. I think they called him the Pale Rider or something like that. And so this is popular in popular culture now, these horse riders. But nobody really knows what they are. Of course, I do. You will too, because we're going to find it in the scriptures here. The Bible reveals it to us before we get to the book of Revelation, these events. You can go back in the Old Testament and take this out of it. Okay. So the question is, how can you take the book of Revelation literally? Or should we take it literally? Yes, we should take it literally. But in taking it literally, we understand that figures of speech are used to communicate literal truth. Not only in the book of Revelation, Jesus constantly used symbolic language to speak literal truth. So we treated the Bible like a piece of historical literature, using the normal grammatical approach. Now, the normal grammatical approach is to allow the words, each word, to mean what it means out of the dictionary. Don't give it a different meaning. Allow each phrase to say what it says, and then break it down according to its parts of speech, and look for similes, look for metaphors, look for analogies, and there are parables found, and common literature and throughout the Bible, Jesus used parables, all toward the conveyance of factual history. Now, a poet said, I love how summer just wraps its arms around you like a warm blankie. There's no one that speaks English, reads that, who fails to understand what he's saying. Or maybe it's a she, Kelly. I don't know. Maybe it's a she, Kelly. It's that feeling you get when summer comes and you just feel the sun soaking into you, and it just wraps around you like a warm blanket. So that's a poetic way of saying something quite literal. And it's easy to understand. Now here's one: bristling yellow buttercups bending neath the teasing fingers of a warm caressing breeze. I saw some bristling yellow buttercups just last week, just bending neath the teasing finger. Have you ever seen the fingers of a breeze? You know, that's symbolic language written by Michael Pearl, a wannabe poet. So the grammatical context determines the interpretation. So give me Bible examples. Jesus said, but whosoever drinketh the water that I shall give him shall never thirst, but the water that I shall give him shall be in him a well of water springing up unto everlasting life. How many people got saved expecting to open their mouth and gush out 30 gallons a minute? No one. How many people expect to fill up a pond from the water Jesus puts inside of? No one. See, anyone who reads that understands that he is speaking that of the Spirit. I will pour water upon him that is thirsty, and floods upon the dry ground. I will pour my Spirit upon thy seed. There it is again, where the Bible interprets itself. First of all, it gives an analogy. I'll pour water upon him that is thirsty. And then it says, water is spirit. I'll pour my Spirit upon thy seed. So that's two parallel statements. Together, we understand what he's saying. And my blessing upon thine offspring. There's a third time he says it. So we go back to that. If we can stack those up, water, spirit, and blessing are all synonymous in that. And thirsty, upon my seed, offspring. Upon him, seed and offspring are the three that are parallel to each other. So you can stack that up, and you got three times he says the same thing. Anyone that's using their common sense reads that and knows what he's saying. Beautiful way to say it and be well understood. John 7. In the last days, the great day of the feast, Jesus stood and cried, saying, If any man thirst, let him come unto me and drink. He that believeth on me, as the Scriptures have said, out of his belly shall flow rivers of living water. Now, the skeptic would say that's a ridiculous statement, but Jesus didn't stop there. But this spake he of the Spirit. So there's your interpretation of that figurative speech, which they believe on him should receive, for the Holy Ghost was not yet given. So his listeners understood his figure of speech and interpreted it to be a literal declaration of offering the Spirit to Israel. There was plenty of prophecies using the same terminology. They knew exactly what he was saying. There was no doubt about it in their minds. So there are metaphors just like that in the book of Revelation. So what is a metaphor? It's a figure of speech that, for rhetorical effect, directly refers to one thing by mentioning another. It may provide clarity of identity, hidden similarities between two different ideas. It's actually a way of expanding and broadening our understanding of a literal truth. So Revelation 5:6, here's a metaphor. And I beheld, and lo, in the midst of the throne and of the four beasts, in the midst of the elders, stood a lamb, as it had been slain, having 7 horns and 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God sent forth unto all the earth. And there's a picture of that right there in my painting before the 144,000. So the 7 eyes and the 7 horns represent complete and final and total, as in 7 days make up a complete week. So in the midst of the throne, he saw the beast, the elders, and all the things that we have painted here. There it is, a drawing, a representation. You know, heaven's going to be a party. It's going to be a family reunion. It's going to be a great time. And, you know, I'm not far from it. I could be there in the next few hours or next couple of years. I probably won't make it 4 or 5 years. That's pretty old. I mean, you know, already. And so I dream about this every once in a while, and it's just too much. It's just too much to talk about and think about. It's like going to heaven, and I know it's a dream. It's not like John or Paul or anything, but the worship, the adoration of the Lord Jesus Christ, the peace, the praise, the joy, just the thrill, the excitement. It's not going to be dull. See those guys kind of dancing around having a good time? They're not standing in one spot. And so you better get ready if you're going to go to have a good time. Revelation 5:6, I beheld, and lo, in the midst of the throne of the 4 beasts, in the midst of the elders, stood a lamb as it had been slain, having 7 horns, 7 eyes, which are, now he's going to interpret the 7 horns and 7 eyes, the spirits of God. The 7 eyes represent the spirits of God, 7 horns, sent forth unto the 7 eyes are the 7 spirits of God, sent forth into all the earth. You know, we have these 7 spirits, which are, they're in heaven. There is a created being like the cherubims and the seraphim and the angels. But there are other 7 created personalities that don't have a body. They're just spirits. He didn't give them a body. But when you have an event in heaven, they want to be there. And they want to. So God has a lamp for each one of them, and they live in that fire. That's where they are. And somebody might want to address them and speak to them. And I guess they crackle back. I don't know what. But there are 7 actual spirits. And they go out through the earth and carry on God's activity. You won't ever see one of these. You could see an angel, but you won't ever see one of these. Now, these are above angels. They are right at the throne of God. They're very special. They have abilities beyond imagination. And I'm sure each one of them has a name. There's 7 of them, so you got one name, 2. So there are 7 individual spirits sent forth to all the earth. To John, the 7 churches which are in Asia, grace be to you and peace from him which is, who was, and is to come, and from the seven spirits which are before his throne. So that appears several times, the seven spirits before the throne of God. And those spirits are even mentioned in the Old Testament. And out of the throne proceed lightnings and thunders and voices. You know what a modern rock concert or even country music concert is? It's an imitation of heaven. And have the lights blinking and moving, the spotlights like that. And they have people all dancing and making a lot of noise and flashing lights and stuff. That's nothing more than the devil's counterfeit for heaven. It's a worship service we have here on earth that I never attend, of course. But people do attend, and in worship they raise their hand. And sometimes they pass out. They get caught in the spirit and get slain and they pass out. And heaven is going to be a gigantic pyrotechnic event. First of all, there's a sea of glass that's transparent that we're walking on. And there's lightning bolts going through the glass underneath it. And then behind the throne is lightning, a big arc of lightning, which I have here coming out of the throne. Have you ever been to one of those shows where they take a Tesla coil and lightning bolts come out of it? And so lightning bolts are coming out of the throne, and you can hear the rumbling and the roaring going all the time. And then there's lightning shooting throughout here. And then you've got millions of angels singing, playing musical instruments, people shouting. It's going to be a big stage event, and it's going to last forever. Now we'll get to go down and make a planet or something, but we come back and enjoy this. I want to make my own planet. I've got some ideas about how I want to shape it and tool it, and then I want to paint pictures of it after I make it. So I'm looking forward to that too. Okay, Old Testament confirmation of this, these seven lamps, seven spirits. Now this is Zechariah chapter 4. This is back about 500 years before the book of Revelation was written. I looked, and behold, a candlestick all of gold with a bowl upon the top of it, 7 lamps thereof, and 7 pipes to the 7 lamps which are upon the top thereof. So we don't have a painting of that because in the book of Zechariah, but what he sees is these lamps being fed by a tube going to each one of them. So the oil is coming from another place. He said, those 7 lamps are the eyes of the Lord which run to and fro through the whole earth. Now that fits here, that these 7 lamps, 7 spirits are spirits of God sent forth over the earth. He mentions that in Zechariah. To misunderstand a metaphor is to confess uncommon ignorance. It's to reveal your false bias and insincerity. To misunderstand a metaphor is to profess antagonistic unbelief. You know the reason God uses metaphors so idiots can understand what he's saying? A literal statement can be hard to understand sometimes. But metaphors are made so children can understand them. That's why he gave parables. So when people don't say, I don't understand the Bible, it's not clear, you don't want to understand the Bible. A child could read that and understand it. Profess antagonistic unbelief is to dismiss literary convention. It's the dumbest, is to make you the dumbest one in the room if you don't understand when Jesus says, when John looked at Jesus and said, behold the Lamb of God, which taketh away the sin of the world. He said, it doesn't look like a lamb to me, it looks like a man to me. What are you calling him a lamb for? All the Jews knew, and when he said lamb, he's talking about somebody who's going to suffer and die to pay for the sins of the people. So here's another metaphor in the book of Revelation. Who are the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse? We're going to show you this in the Old Testament as well as in the New Testament. These horses, the exact same colors with one modification, are mentioned in the Old Testament. Same color, just different words since it comes from Hebrew. Zechariah 1:8, back again 500 years. I saw by night, as Zechariah said, the prophet, a man riding upon a red horse. We have the red horse right here in our painting. He stood among the myrtle trees, and there was in the bottom and behind him, there were red horses and speckled, and that was the 4th horse here in the bay, and white, that was the 1st horse. So we got the same four colors. He describes them differently because speckled is just the way to describe it. By the time you get to the New Testament, you got a name for it. It's bay. Then said I, O Lord, what are these? Good question. The angel that talked with me said unto me, I will show thee what these things, what they be. These are they whom the Lord has sent to walk to and fro through the earth. So these four horsemen come from God. Antichrist doesn't send them. In the book of Revelation, when they come bringing their judgments, they're sent by God. And they answered the angel of the Lord that stood among the myrtle trees and said, we have walked to and fro through the earth, and behold, the earth sitteth still and is at rest. So there was no great wars going on. Things were quiet upon the earth. The spirits of God had been down ministering. Satan was down working, but the angels were maintaining a stability among the nations at that time. And Zechariah 6:2, and the first chariot were red horses. So here is red horses hooked to a chariot. And the second chariot was black horses. See, red horse is death, we're told in the book of Revelation, carrying a sword, killing men. And the black horse comes along and it's famine. It carries a pair of balance scales in its hands. And it speaks of significant inflation. Inflation so high that, as once took place in Germany, a loaf of bread would cost a whole barrel full of bills. And the third chariot, white horses, and the fourth chariot, grizzled and bay horses. Then answered I and said unto the angel that talked with me, what are these, my Lord? And the angel answered and said, these are the four spirits of the heavens which go forth standing before the Lord of the earth. The black horse, which are therein, go forth to the north country. So the black horse was famine. What he's telling the prophet is that famine is what's going to happen in this time of quiet. Everything seems to be peaceful, no problems on the earth. Famine's going to go forth unto the north country. And the white horse go forth after them. That's conquering. In the book of Revelation, the white horse goes first. He conquers, and then there's famine. So a different order of progress here, but same horse color, same events. And the grizzled go forth toward the south country. So the grizzled horse was death. So death comes following them. In the book of Revelation, death is followed by hell. Hell's not riding a horse, just run along picking up the pieces when souls are killed. And the bay went forth and sought to go that they might walk to and fro through the earth. That bay horse, again, is death. And he said, get you hence, walk to and fro through the earth. So they walked to and fro through the earth. Then cried he upon me and spake unto me, saying, behold, these that go forth toward the north country have quieted my spirit in the north country. So north of Jerusalem, north of Israel, was Syria. And what he was telling them is that we're sending famine, we're sending conquering, we're sending death. They've gone forth, they brought that famine and that death, and God said, now my spirit is quieted. I was angry, I was upset, I was incensed that they were offering children and sacrifices, that they were fornicating, that they're worshiping other gods, that they're abusing their bodies. I was angry. And now that this judgment has fallen upon them, God said, my spirit's quieted. I'm at peace about it now. Revelation 6:1, he says, when I saw the Lamb open one of the seals, I heard as it were the noise of thunder. One of the four beasts said, come and see. And I saw, behold, a white horse. He that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given unto him, and he went forth conquering and to conquer. That's the first horse. You see how I've said it before. I could reconstitute the book of Revelation with passages out of the Old Testament. I could take what we just read and replace what's here in the Revelation with that. Whole book of Revelation is not new stuff. He's reassembling what he's already said to the prophets and giving it to us in a coherent, sequential fashion. And when he opened the second seal, I heard the second beast say, come and see. And there went on another horse that was red. Power was given unto him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, that they should kill one another. Now, we see politics and we think men are doing all this, and they are. God lets people bring it on themselves. But there comes times when God acts. When he acts and he works among men and he brings judgments and he starts wars and he causes people to die. Power was given him to sit there and take peace from the earth, that they should kill one another, and there was given unto him a great sword. And when he opened the third seal, I heard the third beast say, come and see, and behold, a black horse, and he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. And I heard a voice from the midst of the four beasts say, a measure of wheat for a penny. That was a day's wages, according to the ancient writings, of a Roman soldier. 1 day's wages was 1 penny. And the measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny, and see thou hurt not the oil and the wine. So to get a meal would cost you a day's wages. That's what's going to come upon this earth during the tribulation. If a day's wages right now is $200, that's what it's going to cost you to get a loaf of bread. No, it won't cost me. I'm going to be in heaven dining around there, and I think most of you will too. And when he opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth beast say, come and see. And I looked, and behold, a pale horse. His name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed with him, and power was given unto them over the fourth part of the earth, only 1/4 of the earth, to kill with the sword, with hunger, with death, and with the beast of the earth. So, it's going to start over in the Middle East. It's going to start around Israel, Iran, Persia, and 1/4 of the earth this is going to spread first during the early part of the tribulation. That's where the war begins. So the United States won't be involved in it when it first starts. It'll just be 1/4 of the earth. Later, it's going to encompass the whole earth. But originally, just that location. That's just for the start. Now, these 4 horsemen are the first 4 seals. And we haven't gotten yet to the physical changes that are going to take place, which is here in the 6th seal. The 6th seal is going to begin this rest of this that we see painted here on the chart. This between the 6th and the 7th seal, there'll be an interval, and then on the 7th seal contains 7 trumpets, and the 7th trumpet contains 7 vials. So in other words, all the vials and all the trumpets are in the 7th seal. And that's when the second coming is going to take place. It'll take place here in the book of Revelation. It'll take place at the 7th trumpet, and it'll take place at the 7th vial. You'll have it recorded 3 times throughout the book of Revelation. So that sets the stage for the coming of the Antichrist after this 4th seal. Now I'm going to stop there for sake of time.